Like you talked about people taking pictures of out-of-home ads. It's actually illegal to put something like a QR code on a billboard because you don't want somebody to get in a car accident scanning a billboard, which is why we advise on the creative side, there's certain best practices to follow.
I'm Jonathan Gandolf, and welcome to the Content Cocktail Hour, powered by Audience Plus. Our mission is to shake out the deepest secrets of B2B marketing professionals and stir up fresh conversation, all to help you connect your brand with the right audience at the right time. Let's raise a glass. Welcome back to the Content Cocktail Hour. This is Jonathan Gandolf, co-founder and CEO of Audience Plus, where I am thrilled to be joined today by Charlie Riley, Charlie, I hope I'm okay to say this, become a bit of a friend in the marketing space. We've crossed paths now in person on the event circuit. I'm a big fan of what they're building at OneScreen, which is helping marketers with out of home. I've got a little bit of my own experience, which I'm eager to share on all things out of home. But Charlie, before I do that, why don't I toss the mic over to you and let you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to at OneScreen in your own words.
Sure. Yeah. I'm flattered and honored that you call me a friend. I think you're not only a brilliant marketer, but you're a genuinely good human being and you want to spend time with good human beings. So I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on. This is great. Charlie Riley, the head of marketing at OneScreen. We are a platform that helps brands, both B2C and D2C, utilize out-of-home advertising as part of their marketing mix. So we help them plan, execute, and measure out-of-home advertising. I've been a marketing lead for over 2 decades now. It's crazy how old I am and how long I've done this, but I've been very lucky to lead different marketing teams across different verticals, different size companies. I've been fortunate to also lead some sales teams as well. So I just love the challenge of figuring out the puzzle that how do you tell a great story to the right people that need to hear it. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to always chat marketing.
Well, excited to dig into all that, Charlie. I'm a little bit curious about your own maybe out-of-home experience, but before we jump into maybe a little bit of my experience, a little bit of your experience, this is the Content Cocktail Hour. We always ask all of our guests, what are you enjoying drinking nowadays?
It's probably one of two things. It's either I don't drink hot drinks, which I don't know if is weird or not. Some people have told me that is.
And you're in Buffalo.
Yes. I drink iced coffee all year round, even in the frozen tundra of Buffalo. So if it's not iced coffee, if it's a alcoholic drink, I think I'm more going with a tequila now. I'm trying to experiment a little bit more with tequila. So tequila on the rocks with a little bit of lime is probably what I'd go to right now.
Tequila is trending on the Content Cocktail Hour. That's been more and more. We've been getting that as an answer. And I think I'm like interested in it, but I feel uneducated on it. And I need to dabble and learn a little bit because I know there's a bunch of different versions or varietals, whatever you want to call it. I need to get up on that trend because I feel like I'm missing out on getting some of the answers from our guests.
I'm glad to hear. I usually am not part of a trending curve, so I feel flattered again. You're flattering me all day today. Maybe we need to have a marketing tequila tasting, and because I'm always open to learn more. There's definitely some variants there, so maybe that's a good follow-up as we could do a tequila tasting with some friends.
Love that. I'm in for that. That'll be a follow-up episode coming soon.
I like it.
Charlie, you mentioned 2 decades in marketing. You're now leading marketing for OneScreen, which does out-of-home, as you highlighted. I'm curious, did you have out-of-home experience that led you into this opportunity, kind of pain point that you all are solving? Or is this something kind of a new space and you've got a fresh perspective that's valuable because it is fresh on this space?
I have had experience purchasing out of home before, which is what attracted me to this role and to what the company's building. Out of home's interesting. There's 2 camps for sure. If you've ever done it, you know that there's a lot of work and like behind the scenes. I always like to use an iceberg analogy. There's a lot of under the iceberg work that has to be done with vendors and trying to figure out what the right mix is. But I have executed out of home a couple times. Having worked for ad agencies in the past, you work with a wide range of clients. I've been involved in some of the media planning, probably more on the digital side when I led digital marketing at an agency. So that was digital out of home, which a lot of people may think out of home is that billboard you drive by in the thruway, but it really encompasses a lot of formats and options. So digital out of home, you could be doing signage or digital ads that are programmatic inside of grocery stores, inside of restaurants, bars, inside of Uber cars, rideshare, to transit ads. And so in previous experiences, I've done some of those campaigns for clients. I also was a head of marketing for a small startup, and we were trying to experiment with a lot of things. And we actually, at that point, that was when smart cars just came to the United States. 3 smart cars, wrapped them, and would use those at a number of events that we were a small competitor trying to punch above our weight. Because I had never purchased cars before. I had never wrapped a vehicle. So, okay, where do I have to go to find that? How do I design this differently? Like, what are the specs for this? What can you do? Where can you drive this? What permits do I need? So all those considerations go into out of home. And that was a really fun experience because that was probably pre certain social media channels, but we were getting a lot of feedback from people saying, taking pictures or just that anecdotal word of mouth that, hey, that's really cool. What is it you guys do? Or like, that's a cool color scheme. So like people don't usually do that with email marketing. They don't do that for a LinkedIn ad. But out of home gives that sort of wow moment that people, community now, it's shared on social, there's word of mouth with it. So I have had some cool experiences with it before, and that's a little bit of what we do at OneScreen.
I love that like kind of guerrilla marketing example you gave. I mentioned my experience 2 career stops ago, I guess. I helped co-found a brewery, which was a complete accident. It was really fun. It's still up and running. It's called Braxton Brewing Company out of Cincinnati, Ohio. But that space, obviously, there's a ton of out of home, but we were this small little scrappy brewery. So we couldn't do a ton of it. That said, we worked with distributors and we would get their trucks wrapped or we would get draft trucks wrapped. And it was always so interesting. I always joke that was our traveling social media because you're right. You'd get people driving by it on the freeway. I'm not endorsing taking a picture while you're driving, but I was always shocked at how many pictures we would get of that truck or the draft truck. And then it worked so well that when it came time to launch our kind of largest beer that we had ever launched, it was a collaboration with a local ice cream company. Shout out to Graders. Any ice cream lovers out there, Graders is the best ice cream in the world, in my opinion. But we did a collaboration with them and we leaned in to some billboards, actually kind of the traditional out of home as we think about it. But I even remember doing that and it was both. It was kind of refreshingly archaic, but it was also like archaic, right? It was kind of like you got a map and they'd give you a rough number of impressions, but it's almost like you'd just pick and you try to put yourself in the person driving by the billboard, like where are they going? Where are they coming from? There's some guidance there, but then it was a lot of kind of guessing and checking, and a lot of it was kind of like this feel-good moment of we could go take a picture of it. We saw other people taking a picture of it, and we knew it worked, but it was kind of difficult to measure. But now with all the technologies around us and all the technologies in marketing, and it's interesting you mentioned it is digital, like it is becoming, I guess, more sophisticated is maybe the word for it. I know you guys have done some things with measurement, but I know you guys are also using some of that digital data to help with planning. How are you kind of striking this balance between this very traditional out-of-home motion that many marketers have done previously with some of the new age technologies?
Yeah, that's a great example with the ice cream. It's fun, and it gives out of home gives a blank canvas to have some fun. I mean, you do want to stand out. So it gives an ability to bring your brand offline where people are tuning out of email, they're tuning out of ads sometimes. You can't turn off out of home. And so I think your example is really relevant. Just a little tidbit too, like you talked about people taking pictures of out of home ads. It's actually illegal to put something like a QR code on a billboard because you don't want somebody to get in a car accident scanning a billboard, which is why we advise on the creative side, there's certain best practices to follow. And like from a measurement standpoint that you talked about, what we do see with a lot of clients is there are multiple ways to measure out of home, but one of the things we usually see is an organic search lift going up in the markets that we run out of home because they will see that billboard as they're driving by. Hopefully, if they're a passenger, they're maybe taking a picture, but if they're a driver, it's that subconscious number of impressions that they see. So when they are in a safe location that they can use their phone or go back to their office, they search for that. And we see an uptick in search there. On the side of maybe say a D2C or B2C brand, we have access to a lot of data sources. So we use 100 some different data sources so we can hone in on, say, if you are a golfer who likes to drink beer, who maybe purchased a certain Who, me?
Yeah, who, me?
Who
Not
maybe
me.
purchased a certain suntan lotion in the last 30 days, which is something I didn't do yesterday. We can then use that data to hone in and say, here's the right location. So it is not guessing. So kind of the value we bring is we take that guessing out of the mix. So we're going to pick, say, 2 billboards, 3 digital ads on transit, because that's where the demographic spends time. And we're going to position 1 or 2 in suburbs because we know that there's traffic patterns for your audience going there, and also maybe 2 in a city. So we'll put all that together so that the right number of impressions are shown so that actually you make the impact you need, but also in the right locations. And so there are different ways to measure that. Like I said, you'll see organic lift go up. We'll do brand recall studies so you can tell who was exposed to ads and who was not. We can show a lift in those that either recall the brand, purchase through. So if it's say like, you're trying to purchase in a major big box store, we can tie that data into retail data and we can tell if they purchase directly online by cooking their site, or if they give us the information, we can give them some insight into purchase data. So it really depends. I mean, it depends on the use case. Like in anything marketing, a lot of the answers are usually it depends. We work with a lot of B2B brands that use out of home as an ABM play. And we'll look at their target account list and see how many responded, how many of you booked meetings with. We can help kind of show results there. So it really comes down to what the use case is and how they're trying to utilize out of home. But yeah, it's a fun channel that people can do some interesting things with. And there are ways to measure it, even as the oldest marketing channel there is in the world.
It is fascinating. It's fun. Like, I think you mentioned this earlier, like, in this world where you hear, at least in the B2B space all the time, like traditional performance channels, your digital channels are like becoming more expensive, less effective, more saturated, like nothing's working. AI is disrupting it all. This really feels like a zig when everyone else is zagging opportunity a little bit. And like, again, you get to infuse some more creativity and some more brand plays into it all. But there is like this emerging way to kind of build this data set around it, both in planning and post execution, that I think's really cool. I don't know, just like I could geek out on this topic all. It just feels like more traditional marketing and creative. There's a little bit of that Mad Men kind of creative like stories you can tell with it that I just love. So last question on this topic, and then I want to switch to maybe some of your own marketing experience. For listeners, watchers of this episode, could you give us a really cool example that you've seen recently of out of home that could maybe inspire us all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the ones that stand out are they're doing something experiential. And I think that that's where, again, the perception of what out of home is, it's that billboard, and that's just a static billboard. But there are so many options. If you see a plane flying over a beach, pulling an ad, that's out of home. Doing sandcastles that are branded, like that's out of home. You can do some fun stuff. Street teams, even though that's usually traditionally a PR play, that's an out of home execution. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of work that goes behind getting that right, and sampling, for example, or something. Mm-hmm. I think one really great campaign that probably stands out, and this was done a couple of years ago, but it tied in transit ads because there's some dwell time there so people can spend some time. I hope I get this right. 3M did this campaign where they put $1 million inside of their glass enclosure, which their glass enclosure was supposed to be bulletproof. I'm paraphrasing probably, and the whole thing was, if you can break this, the money's yours. And people could not break it. So not only did it pique interest, and like anyone that sees $1 million in cash right there, like right away, you're obviously like, what's this? But it reinforced their product, and it actually stood up to what their product told you it could do. I don't know if people tried to shoot it, but you definitely saw videos of people trying to kick it and knock it down, and it wouldn't break. And to me, that's a great example of using a medium in a place where there's a lot of traffic. It's going to tell a story. They got a huge extra boost out of PR out of that. But that's a really great example. So like that's a big execution where I've seen some of the Kit Kat has done this with park benches that look like Kit Kats. Cool little brand extension of like what your product looks like. Their whole thing is like, you need a break or taking a break. Well, someone sitting on a bench needs a break. So like awesome like combination there of marketing. So yeah, creative marketing, AI is great. It makes everyone's job a lot easier. It's starting to take creativity out of marketing, and out of home is one of those channels that gives you a chance to think creatively and have some fun with it.
It's so interesting. We as marketers are all trying to hack these algorithms and go viral that way, right? It's something out of home that is creative and all about time and place, and that's the stuff that actually goes viral. So I think those are some really cool examples. All right, I want to switch to your marketing experience a little bit. I know OneScreen, you've served both B2C and B2B marketers. As a marketer, what's your experience when you've got either multiple personas, or maybe you're trying to narrow in on the right persona? Like, what advice would you have for marketers who have that same challenge of either multiple personas or evolving personas?
Yeah, it's difficult to be good at everything. And that goes for a lot of things. That goes for your persona. That goes for being a T-shaped marketer or niching down. I've been able to snorkel at most functions, and I can deep dive into... I think someone else made that. I'm not going to, I don't know who, so I can't give them full credit. My career has given me a chance to have to pretty much do any function. When you're working for maybe smaller teams, you have to pitch in different spots. And you can deep dive in areas that you maybe have to lean into a little bit more. Being able to understand who you're trying to talk to, that's always an evolving thing. I think you get in trouble if you flag too quickly or just are too rigid in your description there. But it's also too hard and too expensive to be good at everything. We run into this at OneScreen. We used a lot of information and data to figure out who looks best for marketers who may run an out-of-home campaign. The data will tell you that D2C brands, they care more about brand marketing. They spend a higher percentage of their marketing budget on out-of-home channels. So there's a lot of data you can use. We also look at all of our previous customers and you try to figure out, like, is there a story there? We're all storytellers in marketing. So like there's a story in all this data. So we took all that information and tried to make a bet and said, like, here's a hypothesis and here's how we're going to go about doing that. And you can certainly iterate with that. However, we still see a wide mix of B2B brands. They might raise a Series A, Series B. They're doing a product launch. They're very ABM focused. They see it, like you said, a zig versus a zag when others in the market aren't doing this and they see an opportunity to stand out and look bigger. I know we see D2C brands or B2C brands who see a really good opportunity to complement their digital marketing. Like those brands are dollar in, dollar out for, they're honed in really well on digital channels. How do you take it to the next level? How do you add something to that? Out of home is a great complement to their digital marketing. And so, yeah, in our sense, we still see a mix. Would we like to maybe hone in on one area that we can get even tighter on? Sure, but we're seeing a good response from both of those. So I think as a marketer, if you're trying to figure that out, if your ICP is everyone, that's not good. So how do you get that a little bit tighter? Your data is going to tell a story. You have to listen to sales calls. You have to look at the market trends. There's data resources out there that are going to help you understand, like I said, in our case, how much a B2B marketer spends on their budget for out of home versus a D2C brand. You can take all that information. You can make a really good bet, but hopefully as a marketer, you're trained to also have a gut feel for certain things. And I think you never want to lose that. Data is going to help you figure out a lot of things, but you should use your expertise to maybe in on that a little bit. And like I said, it's going to be iterative. It's going to always be an iterative process. You should evolve with that. You might need to go up market after you figure something out. But yeah, I think it's listening to your gut a little bit, but also taking in all the stories and not making a decision too fast, because you could start down a path too quickly without having the full story there. But you also don't want to wait too long and be behind the curve.
I love that you've combined data and storytelling. I think we are sometimes guilty, again, we being myself, marketers, of like talking about those things in exclusivity. It's like we can talk about data and demand, or we can talk about brand and storytelling. But the fact that you all have combined both to iterate and figure out what's right for you, and be open to it evolving as you grow, I think is really interesting. We've had the exact same experience at The Juice and now Audience Plus. It's been really interesting to listen to the market, kind of iterate, experiment, refine, and we continue to do that, and we will continue to do that. But I love that you've combined data and storytelling there.
Yeah, as marketers, that's our job, is to tell a story. It's either data is telling a story or we're the proverbial heartstrings content story, but they should work together. We have so much information at our disposal now as marketers. It's tough sometimes to read the signal between the noise, but that's our job, to tell stories. And a lot of times spending enough time with the data will tell the story for you. It doesn't make the job as a marketer any easier. You have to be creative. You have to be analytical now. You have to be an AI expert. You have to crush demand, but also be a brand marketer. You're wearing a million hats, but that's your job, to be a good storyteller.
Well, I think that segues nicely into the last question that I always like asking our guests. And I might know your answer here a little bit, but what's an unpopular opinion that you have as it pertains to B2B marketing?
I think I've got a couple. I think the one we chatted about a little earlier is I think titles in marketing are BS, or I apologize to your mom who's going to be mad for me saying this, but are bullshit. Because sort of what I just said, it's incredible how much a marketer is asked to do. Our jobs now are slowly seeping into sales. Sometimes it's sales enablement. Sometimes it's actually as a BDR to some degree. It depends on a couple things, which is fine because there's a blending there. But to be an expert in like I said, to deep dive or to snorkel across 10, 15, now maybe 30 functions of what we're asked to do, it depends on the day, is a lot. And it's funny because marketers are always looking for credibility internally and with the boards and such. And I know there's some brilliant marketers that talk about this a lot, like Kyle Lacey and others, of just how you get credibility with your C-suite and with boards. And a lot of that has to come down to now is how well you can read a spreadsheet and how you can tie what you do to revenue. But you never see this with finance. There's always a CFO in an organization. There's never a CMO, but it's a pretty linear path of what the finance function looks like. And even in sales, you understand the BDR, AE, CRO now. So I think marketing's tough because you either get pigeonholed into maybe one or two functions. You're a demand gen person, you're a brand marketer, you're a growth marketer, even though that can encompass a lot of things. You're a copywriter, you're a marketing ops person. Like those are 7 or 8 jobs that I just described. And sometimes that's being asked to the one marketer to do or a small team to do. So the breadth of what a marketing individual is asked to do now is pretty broad. I think this goes to my other misperception we talked about, or just kind of like just maybe non-popular thing. But internal marketing, I think, is sometimes more important than external marketing because the marketing maturity across the organization is limited and sales doesn't truly understand how marketing helps support them. They just look at them as you are creating sell sheets and you're just here to work for us. If finance looks at you as a sunk cost versus an investment, then there's problems. And you as a marketer, as I spoke before, your job is to storytell. And some of that includes internal storytelling with product to help them understand, here's why I need some lead time to think about how I would describe the product. Have we talked to enough customers? Are we using the terminology that they would use versus what we just are assuming? Sales, here's how you can utilize the resources that we're building. Find a prospect who's going to shorten the sales cycle. Here's how to utilize that information. Board, here are the things I'm measuring and here's why it's important. Everyone doesn't need to know the nitty gritty, but you as a marketer, your job is to educate internally because you're going to have a much easier job getting budget, building campaigns, executing on those, and also having other people contribute to that. When you do a good job, having everyone understand you're there to help support and you're there to help make their jobs easier, not just act as a silo. And so it's a cheating answer, but I think the two things that I think are maybe not a popular opinion, marketing titles are all over the board. And I think it's difficult to assess maybe talent levels or expertise sometimes when they're all over the place. And I think internal marketing is usually more important sometimes than the external marketing.
I love that answer. So I think internal marketing is a secret superpower that is way too often overlooked. I'm curious, Charlie, and I don't typically ask a follow-up question, but I love this thought so much from you. And I'm going to tie it back to one of your previous answers as well. In your current role as head of marketing at OneScreen, do you find yourself doing more snorkeling or more deep diving?
It's a great question. I think, so currently I'm a team of 1. Now I utilize some excellent partners. I don't like to call them vendors. They're partners. They're extensions of your team. They're not a full-time equivalent. And I think that that's one thing that's going to change with marketing teams. I think there's going to be more and more of specialists that teams are going to work with, and they should be considered a partner. They should not be considered a vendor. I think when you are on a very small team, that's the norm when you're working for smaller organizations. You do need to snorkel quite a bit. And the context shift that you do on a daily basis is significant. And I think you have to be able to understand that and be able to wear different hats at different times. One day I might be working on the podcast that we just recently launched, securing a guest. Then I'm trying to figure out what the email is. There's a follow-up. Then I'm putting that into a blog post. And then 2 hours later, I'm helping think about, okay, what's maybe a new PR story that we can execute? And then I'm also working on an event that we're going to sponsor and what's the activation for that. I think having a career that spanned a bunch of those, and my dogs agree with us as they got excited talking about this.
They're very fired up about the topic.
But that's something that as over time, you just learn, like there's different functions that you need to do. And I think when you are thinking about roles, you need to understand that, or even like I said, going back to titles, you need to understand what the expectations are of what you're being asked to do and how much context shifting there is, because it can be time consuming, but it's helpful to be able to to work on multiple things. You can't do them all at once because it's hard to do everything well at once, but there is a lot of context shifting with smaller teams. And I think that's going to happen more and more with AI.
I love that. And your dogs, you don't have to worry about. They're not the first, and they won't be the last to co-star on an episode of the Content Cocktail Hour. Typically, though, it's my dogs, causing a scene. So thanks for letting them join. I love the perspective of partners and kind of the extension of the team. I think that's really powerful. So thanks so much, Charlie, for partnering on this podcast. If people want to learn more from you or learn more about OneScreen, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. I love chatting marketing in general. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. Yeah, check us out at OneScreen.ai. A lot of information about out of home and just how to think about it. So we'd be happy to chat with you if you're interested there. Yeah, LinkedIn or probably OneScreen.ai is the easiest place.
Love that. We will get all of those links in the show notes. Charlie, thank you so much for joining the Content Cocktail Hour today. Until next time, to all of our watchers and listeners, thanks for joining another episode. Same time, same place. Cheers. Thank you for joining the Content Cocktail Hour powered by Audience Plus. If you want to see more episodes or more resources curated for your role, join us at audienceplus.com. See you next time. Same place. Cheers.